Before I get into my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything as I share my story of betrayal, and it helps others going through similar situations find this content. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and if this story resonates with you, consider leaving a super thanks. I was denied a mortgage for my dream home because of $127,000 in debt I never knew existed. When the bank showed me copies of the credit applications, I recognized the signature immediately. It was my own sister's handwriting, practiced to perfection over years. But what destroyed me, what made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped those papers right there in that sterile bank office, was seeing my mother's name listed as a reference on every single fraudulent account. Every single one. The loan officer, Patricia, watched me with this carefully neutral expression that told me she had seen this before. She probably thought I was some deadbeat trying to play innocent. I remember her manicured fingernails tapping against the manila folder that contained my entire financial ruin. That sound still haunts me sometimes. Tap, 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 the rhythm of my life falling apart. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began, though I did not know it at the time. 8 years ago. I was 29 years old, working 2 jobs, living in a cramped studio apartment that smelled like the Thai restaurant downstairs, and dreaming of something more. Something mine. My name is Rachel, and I need you to understand who I was back then to fully grasp what my sister Sarah and my mother did to me. I was the responsible one. I had always been the responsible one. When Sarah was out partying through college on my parents' dime, flunking classes and changing majors every semester, I was working full-time at a medical billing company during the day and serving tables 3 nights a week at an upscale Italian restaurant. When Sarah moved back home after dropping out, complaining about how hard life was, I was packing my lunch every single day to save $7. $7. That was my daily lunch budget that I refused to spend. I ate peanut butter sandwiches and carrot sticks for 3 years straight, because $7 a day for 5 days a week is $35. That is $140 a month, $1,680 a year. Money that went into my dream home fund instead of into my stomach. You need to understand this about me, because what they did, what they stole from me, was not just money. It was time. It was sacrifice. It was every single evening I chose a peanut butter sandwich over a fresh salad. Every single night I smiled through rudeness and exhaustion to earn tips. Every single morning I woke up at 5:30 so I could be at my desk by 7. My mother used to praise me for it. I remember her words. Exactly. She would say, "Rachel, you are so good with money. You are so responsible. Your sister could learn a thing or two from you." I would feel proud when she said that. Proud and a little superior, if I'm being honest. I thought I was the smart one, the one who had it together. God, I was such a fool. Sarah was 31, 2 years older than me, and she had never held a job for longer than 6 months. She had this way of making her failures sound like adventures. Got fired for showing up late? No, she was too creative for that rigid corporate environment. Could not pay her car insurance. Well, she was focusing on her wellness and could not be bothered with material concerns. She lived with my parents in their modest 3-bedroom ranch house in the suburbs, sleeping in her childhood bedroom with the same pink walls and boy band posters from high school. My father had passed away 4 years before this all began. Heart attack at 58. He was a good man, worked in construction his whole life, and left behind a small life insurance policy that my mother used to pay off their mortgage. Mom worked part-time at a local library, barely making $22,000 a year, but the house was paid for, and she got by. Sarah contributed nothing. Not rent, not groceries, not utilities, nothing. But Mom never complained. She would say Sarah was going through a hard time. Sarah was finding herself. Sarah needed support. I visited every Sunday for dinner. It was tradition. Mom would make pot roast or chicken or spaghetti, and we would sit around the same scarred wooden table where I had eaten thousands of meals growing up. Sarah would show up late, usually around the time the food was ready, and talk about whatever new business idea she had or whatever new guy she was seeing. Mom would listen like Sarah was sharing the secrets of the universe, instead of describing another pyramid scheme or another man who would disappoint her in 3 months. I would sit there, eating my pot roast, and think about how I was doing everything right and somehow still struggling while Sarah did everything wrong and got taken care of. But I never said anything. Family is family. You support each other. That is what I believed. The irony makes me want to laugh now or scream. I have not decided which. I started saving for a house when I was 25. I had a plan. I had spreadsheets. I had a target number, $80,000 for a 20% down payment on a $400,000 home, which was what decent 3-bedroom houses cost in my area. I was going to do it right. No PMI, good interest rate, financial security. Every paycheck from both jobs got divided up the moment I received it. 40% to rent and utilities, 20% to groceries and necessities, 10% to my car payment and insurance, 5% to an emergency fund, 25% to my house fund. I had it down to a science. The house fund lived in a high-yield savings account that I never touched. I would log in every Friday after work and watch the number grow. By the time I was 29, I had $60,312.47. I remember that exact number because I had checked it the morning before everything fell apart. I was so close. Just 2 more years of this routine, maybe 3 if I wanted some cushion, and I would have my house, my space, my proof that working hard and doing the right things pays off. I had even started looking at listings online, nothing serious, just browsing, letting myself dream a little. There was this one house I loved, a small Cape Cod-style place with blue shutters and a white picket fence that looked like it belonged in a storybook. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a backyard big enough for a garden. The listing price was $395,000. Perfect. I printed out the listing and kept it in my desk drawer at work. Sometimes during lunch while I ate my peanut butter sandwich, I would take it out and look at it. I would imagine drinking coffee in that little sunroom. I would imagine planting tomatoes in that backyard. I would imagine hosting Thanksgiving dinner in a house that was mine. That listing became my mantra. Every time I wanted to buy a new shirt or go to a movie or order takeout, I would think about that house. I would think about blue shutters and white picket fences. I would think about belonging somewhere, and I would pack another peanut butter sandwich. Then, I turned 31. It felt significant somehow. 31 felt like an adult age, like the age where you should have things figured out. I decided it was time. Even though I only had $60,000 instead of $80,000, I had a steady work history, excellent credit, and enough for a 15% down payment. I could make it work. The decision felt huge. I told my mother first, at one of our Sunday dinners. I remember exactly where we were sitting. I was in my usual spot, the chair closest to the kitchen, and I announced that I was going to start the mortgage application process. Mom smiled. She said that was wonderful. She said she was proud of me. She said I deserved this. Sarah was late to dinner that night. She missed my announcement entirely. She showed up 40 minutes after we started eating, grabbed a plate, and launched into a story about some argument she had with one of her friends. I barely listened. I was too busy imagining my own kitchen where I would make my own Sunday dinners someday. Looking back now, I wonder if Sarah already knew what they had done. I wonder if that was why she avoided looking at me that night, or maybe I am reading too much into it. Maybe she just did not care enough to pay attention. I will never know. I scheduled an appointment with a mortgage broker named Tom that a coworker recommended. He had helped her buy her first house 2 years earlier, and she said he was patient and good at explaining things. The appointment was on a Tuesday afternoon. I took a long lunch from my day job, put on my best interview suit, and brought a folder full of documents I thought I would need. Bank statements, tax returns, pay stubs from both jobs, my life in paper form. Tom's office was in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a sandwich shop, generic commercial carpet, fake plants, motivational posters on the walls about dreams and success. He was probably in his 50s, with graying hair and reading glasses on a chain around his neck. He seemed nice. Professional. We sat down. He asked me about what I was looking for. I told him about the house with blue shutters. I told him about my down payment. I told him about my jobs and my savings plan. He nodded along, typing notes into his computer. Then he asked me to fill out the initial application while he pulled my credit report. He said it was standard procedure, nothing to worry about, just needed to see where we stood. I filled out the form. Name, social security number, current address, employment information, previous addresses. I had lived in the same studio apartment for 6 years, so that section was easy. I handed the form back to Tom. He typed some more. Then he frowned. It was subtle, just a small crease between his eyebrows, but I noticed it immediately. "Is everything okay?" I asked. He did not answer right away. He scrolled through whatever was on his screen. The scrolling went on for a while. Too long. "Rachel," he finally said, "when was the last time you checked your credit report?" "I do not know," I admitted. "Maybe never." I had always paid everything on time. I had no reason to check. Tom turned his monitor so I could see it. My credit score was right at the top of the screen. 430, 430. I stared at that number. I did not understand. I'd researched credit scores when I first started planning for a house. I knew that 700 was good and 800 was excellent. I knew that my careful bill paying and low credit utilization should have put me well above 600 at minimum. "There must be a mistake," I said. "That cannot be right." Tom's expression was sympathetic now. He had shifted from professional broker to social worker delivering bad news. He said there was no mistake. He said I had 23 credit cards in my name. 23. 18 of them were maxed out. 5 were in collections. I had 4 personal loans, all in default. I had 2 car loans, both in default. The total debt was $127,463.92. My hands started shaking. I felt cold. That specific kind of cold that starts in your stomach and spreads outward until your fingers and toes go numb. I told Tom that was impossible. I told him I had never opened a credit card in my life beyond the one I used for gas and groceries, which I paid off in full every single month. I told him I drove a used Honda Civic that I had bought with cash 4 years ago. I told him there was no way this was real. Tom said he believed me. He said this happened more often than people thought. Identity theft. Someone had been using my name and social security number to open accounts. "Who would do that?" I asked. My voice sounded strange. "Small. Usually family," Tom said quietly, "or someone close who has access to your personal information." The words hung in the air between us. Family. Someone close. I thought about my purse, which I always left in my car when I came over for Sunday dinner, because Mom's house felt safe. I thought about my mother, who had my social security number memorized because she had filled out financial aid forms for me when I was in community college. I thought about Sarah, who had been alone in my studio apartment multiple times over the years when I let her stay there during fights with Mom or after breakups with boyfriends. But I did not want to think about that. Not yet. It was too big. Too impossible. Tom printed out the credit report for me. It was 47 pages long, 47 pages of accounts I had never opened, charges I had never made, loans I had never signed for. He went through it with me, page by page, highlighting the accounts. Chase credit card opened March 2015, Discover card opened July 2015, Capital One card opened September 2015, Bank of America card opened November 2015. They went on and on, month after month, year after year. Someone had been systematically destroying my credit for 8 years, and I had no idea. "Do you recognize any of these addresses?" Tom asked, pointing to the billing addresses listed for the cards. They were all my mother's house, every single one. I felt something crack inside my chest, some essential piece of trust or innocence or belief in the fundamental goodness of people. It made an actual sound in my head, a snap, like a bone breaking. "I need copies of the applications," I heard myself say. My voice sounded robotic. "Can you get those?" Tom nodded. He said it might take a few days, but he could request them from the creditors. He asked if I wanted to continue with the mortgage application. I almost laughed. What was I supposed to say? Yes? Let me buy a house with my 430 credit score and $127,000 in debt that I cannot pay because I am not the one who spent it? I told him no. I told him I needed to deal with this first. He gave me his card and told me to call him if I needed anything. He mentioned lawyers and police reports and credit freezes. The words washed over me without meaning. I drove home in a daze. I did not remember the drive. I just found myself sitting in my apartment parking lot with no memory of how I got there. The Thai restaurant smells that usually made me hungry now made me nauseous. I went inside. I sat on my cheap IKEA couch that I had bought at a thrift store for $75. I stared at my walls, which were still the rental white because I could not afford to lose my security deposit. I looked around at my carefully budgeted life, my clearance rack dishes, my patched throw pillows, my used coffee maker that I had gotten at a garage sale. Every single choice I had made for the past 6 years had been about sacrifice, about delayed gratification, about building toward something better, and someone had stolen it. The credit report sat on my coffee table. I could not look at it yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into my credit card account, the one real card I had, the one I used responsibly. The current balance was $183.72 for gas and groceries that month, exactly what I had expected. I had done everything right. I did not sleep that night. I lay in my bed and watched the ceiling fan go around and around and tried to make sense of what I had learned. I kept coming back to those billing addresses. My mother's house. Why would identity thieves use the victim's family address? They would not, because they would be caught immediately, which meant it was not a stranger. It was someone who lived at that address, someone who could intercept the mail, someone who could sign for packages, someone who could make sure I never found out. The next morning, I called in sick to both jobs for the first time in 3 years. I was not sick, I was destroyed, but I needed time to think, time to plan. I started with my credit card statement. I logged into my account and looked at every transaction for the past year. Gas, groceries, my car insurance, my pharmacy. Nothing unusual. Nothing I had not authorized. Then I went back further. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Everything was normal. Every charge was mine, which made sense because this card predated the fraud. I had opened it when I was 24, before any of this started. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I requested my free annual credit report from all 3 bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. They all told the same story. 23 credit cards, 4 personal loans, 2 car loans, collection agencies, charge-offs, late payments going back 8 years, 8 years. Sarah had moved back in with my mother 8 years and 2 months ago. The timing clicked into place with horrible clarity. I started going through the 47 pages Tom had printed for me, reading every detail. The credit cards started small. A $500 limit here, a $1,000 limit there. Then they got bigger. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. The spending pattern was steady. Run the card up to its limit over a few months, make a minimum payment or 2, then stop paying, then open another card. The personal loans were bigger. $10,000 from a local credit union, $15,000 from an online lender, $25,000 from another bank, $30,000 from yet another lender. The applications for those must have required more documentation, more proof of identity. The car loans were both for used vehicles, a 2013 Ford Escape for $18,000, a 2016 Nissan Altima for $22,000. Both purchased from the same used car dealership about 45 minutes from my mother's house. Tom had told me he would get the applications, but I could not wait. I needed to see them now. I needed proof. I called the credit card companies. I started with Chase because it was the first card opened. I explained the situation, identity theft. I needed copies of the original applications. The customer service representative was sympathetic but firm. They could send applications to law enforcement if I filed a police report, or they could send them to me if I filled out an identity theft affidavit and had it notarized. Fine. I would do that. I spent the next 3 days filling out paperwork. Identity theft affidavits for 23 credit card companies, 4 lenders, 2 car dealerships. I had them notarized at a UPS store for $11 per signature. $319 total, which I paid on my one real credit card because my savings account was for my house fund and I could not quite bring myself to touch it yet. Even in crisis, old habits, I filed a police report. The officer who took my statement looked bored. He said identity theft cases were hard to prosecute. He said most of the time the thieves were in another country. I told him I knew exactly who had done this, and they lived 20 minutes away. That got his attention. "Who?" he asked. I hesitated. Once I said the words out loud, I could not take them back. Once I made the accusation, everything would change. "My sister," I said, "and possibly my mother." He wrote it down. He gave me a case number. He said a detective would follow up, but it might take a while because they were backlogged. He told me to freeze my credit so no new accounts could be opened. I did that immediately. All 3 bureaus. Frozen. Then I waited. The applications started arriving 2 weeks later. Big manila envelopes with official letterheads. I would come home from work and find them leaning against my apartment door. Some days there would be 3 or 4. I started bringing them inside and stacking them on my kitchen counter unopened. I could not look at them yet. I was not ready. But I knew I would have to eventually. Sunday dinner kept happening. I kept going. I could not stay away because my absence would signal that something was wrong, and I was not ready for that conversation yet. I needed all the facts first. I needed all the evidence. I needed to be absolutely certain before I destroyed my family. So I went. I smiled. I ate pot roast. I listened to Sarah talk about her new interest in essential oils and how she was thinking about becoming a wellness coach. I watched my mother nod encouragingly and tell Sarah what a wonderful idea that was. I watched them both and I looked for signs. Did Sarah seem nervous around me? Did Mom seem guilty? I could not tell. They seemed normal. They seemed like themselves, which made me wonder if I was wrong, if maybe there was some other explanation. But then I would go home and see those manila envelopes stacked on my counter, physical proof that someone had destroyed my life and that someone had to be them. It took me 3 weeks to open the first envelope. It was a Thursday night. I had just gotten home from my restaurant shift. My feet hurt. I smelled like garlic and marinara sauce. I looked at those envelopes and decided I could not wait anymore. I started with Chase. The first card opened. I pulled out the application, 3 pages of forms filled out in handwriting that looked like mine but was not quite right. The letters were similar. The slant was similar. But something was off. I got one of my old credit card statements from my filing cabinet, the one real card I had. I looked at my signature. Then I looked at the signature on the Chase application. They were similar, very similar. Someone had practiced. Sarah had practiced. I remembered something then, a memory I had forgotten. Sarah in high school, forging our mother's signature on permission slips and report cards. She was good at it. Good enough that Mom never found out about the field trip Sarah skipped or the grades she failed until parent-teacher conferences rolled around. I kept reading the application, name, Rachel Marie Thompson, social security number, mine, date of birth, mine, address, my mother's house. Then I got to the employment section. Occupation, medical billing specialist, employer, Northeast Medical Partners, annual income, $62,000. That was my job, my employer, my approximate income from both jobs combined. How did Sarah know my income? How did she know where I worked? Then I remembered. Mom had asked me about my job a few months before this application was submitted. She wanted to know how much I was making because she was worried I was working too hard. She wanted to make sure I was being paid fairly. I had told her everything because she was my mother and I trusted her. And she had told Sarah. Or maybe they had planned it together. Maybe Mom had been gathering information deliberately. I did not know yet, but I would find out. I opened another envelope. Discover card, same pattern, same handwriting, same employment information. This time the address listed was my apartment, but there was a note saying to send all correspondence to an alternate address, my mother's house. Capital One, Bank of America, Citibank, American Express, Synchrony. Every single application had my real information paired with my mother's address. Every single one had employment details that I had shared innocently. Every single signature was Sarah's practiced forgery of mine. The personal loan applications were more elaborate. They required pay stubs. I did not understand how Sarah had gotten those until I looked closer at the submitted documents. They were fake, badly photoshopped. My employer's name and logo copied from the company website, paired with invented numbers that showed me making far more than I actually earned. But they had worked. The lenders had not verified them. They had just approved the loans and sent the money to an account I had never opened. I found that account information in one of the applications. A checking account at a local bank, opened in my name with my social security number. The address on file was my mother's house. I called the bank the next morning. I explained the situation. The representative pulled up the account. It had been opened 8 years ago with an initial deposit of $100. Since then, over $200,000 had moved through it. Loan proceeds, cash advances. The money would hit the account and then disappear days later through ATM withdrawals, checks, and debit card purchases. "Can you tell me where the ATM withdrawals happened?" I asked. The representative hesitated. "That information would require a subpoena or a police investigation," she said. I told her I had a police report. I gave her my case number. She said she would note it in the file. The car loans were next. I called the dealership where both vehicles had been purchased. I asked to speak to a manager. I explained the situation. He was defensive at first. His dealership did not enable fraud. They verified everything. "Did you verify the identification?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "What did the identification show?" A pause. Then he said he would have to pull the files. He called me back an hour later. The license provided at both purchases was a Florida driver's license in my name. Florida. I had never lived in Florida. I had never even been to Florida. "Can you email me a copy of what was provided?" I asked. He said he could send it to the police. I gave him my case number. I called the detective assigned to my case. He had not contacted me yet. He sounded annoyed that I was calling him. He said he would look into it when he had time. I did not have time. My life was falling apart, and he would look into it when he had time. I decided I would handle this myself. But first, I needed to be absolutely sure. I needed to eliminate any possibility that I was wrong. So I did something I'm not proud of. I showed up at my mother's house on a Tuesday morning when I knew Mom would be at the library and Sarah would be at home. I still had my key. I let myself in. The house looked the same as always, the same worn carpet, the same family photos on the walls, the same throw blankets on the couch, everything familiar, everything safe. I went to Sarah's room. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the grandfather clock in the living room. I went inside. Sarah's room was Sarah's room. Disaster. Clothes everywhere, makeup scattered across the dresser, empty water bottles and snack wrappers covering every surface. The smell was stale, like unwashed sheets and old perfume. I started searching. I did not know what I was looking for exactly. Evidence? Proof. Something that would confirm what I already knew. I found it in the back of her closet, shoved into an old shoebox under a pile of winter coats. A Florida driver's license with my name and my face. Except it was not my face. It was Sarah's face, photoshopped onto a copy of my old license photo that I had uploaded to Facebook years ago. Underneath the license were credit cards, my name embossed on every single one. Chase, Discover, Capital One, Bank of America, all of them. Some of them were cut up, some of them were intact. All of them were mine. There were also receipts, thousands of dollars at Target, at TJ Maxx, at Ulta, at restaurants I had never been to, at gas stations I had never stopped at. A paper trail of a life I had never lived funded by debt I would have to pay. I took photos of everything with my phone, every card, every receipt, that driver's license. I photographed the shoebox itself, the closet where I found it, the room beyond. I documented everything. Then I kept searching. In Sarah's nightstand, I found bank statements for the fraudulent checking account. They were addressed to my name at my mother's address. Someone had been opening them, someone had been tracking the money. The statements went back years. I flipped through them, watching the pattern. Loan deposit, ATM withdrawal $500, ATM withdrawal $1,000, check written to cash $2,000, debit card purchase at Best Buy $1,200, debit card purchase at a furniture store $3,400, on and on, thousands upon thousands of dollars flowing through an account that should not exist. I found something else in that nightstand drawer, a notebook, spiral bound, with a purple cover. I opened it. It was a list. Every credit card they had opened in my name. The date opened, the credit limit, the account number, the current balance. Sarah had been keeping track. She knew exactly how much debt she was creating. At the bottom of the most recent page, in Sarah's handwriting, was a note. Mom says we need to slow down. Too much too fast. But I need new tires, and Rachel isn't going to buy a house anytime soon anyway. Rachel's not going to buy a house anytime soon anyway. I read that line 5 times, 6 times. I read it until the words burned into my brain. She knew. They both knew I was saving for a house. They knew I was sacrificing. They knew what that money meant to me, and they did it anyway. I took photos of every page of that notebook. Then I kept searching. In my mother's room, I expected to find nothing. I wanted to find nothing. I wanted to believe Mom had been manipulated by Sarah, that she had been fooled or coerced or somehow innocent in all of this. I did not find nothing. I found a file folder in her desk drawer labeled Rachel Documents. Inside were photocopies of my birth certificate, my social security card, my old tax returns that I had stupidly left at the house years ago when I did my taxes in the dining room before I could afford a computer. Bank statements from my savings account that I had never given her. Underneath those documents was a handwritten list in my mother's precise cursive. It was titled Account Access Information. Below that were usernames and passwords for my email account, my bank account, my credit card account, everything I had ever created, cataloged and stored in my mother's desk. She had been monitoring me, watching me, stealing my information. At the bottom of that folder was a letter, handwritten, dated 3 months earlier. Sarah, it began, I know you are frustrated that we cannot take out more in Rachel's name, but we have to be careful. She's starting to talk about buying a house, which means she will be checking her credit soon. We need to be prepared for her to find out. When she does, we will tell her that we were desperate, that I lost my job and did not know what else to do, that we plan to pay it all back. She will be angry, but she will forgive us eventually. She always does. She is family-oriented, and she will not want to lose us. Just make sure you get rid of any evidence before she finds it. Hide the cards, shred the statements. We will be fine. Love, Mom. I sat on my mother's bed holding that letter, and I felt something inside me die. Not dramatically, not suddenly. Just a quiet extinguishing of something that used to be warm. My mother had planned this. She had orchestrated it. She had not been manipulated by Sarah. She had been the architect. And she thought I would forgive them. She thought my love for family would outweigh my devastation. She thought she knew me. She was wrong. I photographed the letter. I photographed every document in that folder. I photographed the folder itself in the desk drawer where I found it. Then, I put everything back exactly as it had been. I locked the house behind me when I left. I drove home. I walked into my apartment. I sat down on my cheap thrift store couch, and I began to plan. The detective finally called me back 3 days later. He said he had reviewed my case. He said it looked like family fraud. He said those cases were complicated because most victims did not want to press charges against family members. I want to press charges, I told him. I want them both arrested. There was a pause. Both? He asked. My sister and my mother. They did this together. I have proof. I told him about the shoebox, the notebook, the letter. I emailed him the photos I had taken. He said he would look into it. He said he would need to verify everything. He said it might take time. I told him I would wait. What else could I do? But I did not want to wait. I wanted justice now. I wanted them to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted them to feel the betrayal and the devastation and the sheer disbelief that someone you loved could destroy you so completely. Sunday dinner that week was torture. I sat at that scarred wooden table and ate chicken casserole and listened to Sarah complain about how hard it was to find a good job in this economy. I watched my mother nod sympathetically and reassure Sarah that something would come along. I said nothing. I smiled when appropriate. I cleared my plate and washed my dishes. Sarah asked me how the house hunt was going. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I looked at her. She looked back innocently, genuinely curious. "It is on hold," I said carefully. "Some financial complications came up." "Oh no," Mom said. "What kind of complications?" "Just some paperwork issues," I said. "Nothing major. I'm working through it." "That's too bad," Sarah said. "You have been saving for so long." "Yes," I said. "I have been saving for so long." The conversation moved on. They had no idea I knew. They thought they were safe. They thought their plan had worked. I let them believe it for 2 more weeks. I needed that time to organize my evidence and to consult with a lawyer. I found one who specialized in identity theft cases. His name was Marcus Chen, and his consultation fee was $300. I paid it with my credit card because my savings account was still sacred. Marcus reviewed everything: the applications, the photos from Sarah's room, the letter from Mom, the police report. He said I had an airtight case. He said they could face up to 15 years in prison if convicted on all counts. He said it would destroy my family relationships permanently. "I know," I told him. "That is fine." He also told me about the process for disputing the fraudulent debt. I would have to file disputes with every single creditor. I would have to provide proof of identity theft. I would have to get affidavits notarized. It could take months or years to clean up my credit. Some creditors might not believe me. Some might still try to collect. "Do it," I told him. "File everything." Marcus said it would cost money. Legal fees for the criminal case and the civil case, filing fees, court costs. He estimated $10,000 to $15,000 total. I thought about my savings account. $60,312.47, money I had saved through peanut butter sandwiches and exhaustion and sacrifice. Money that was supposed to buy my dream house. I could not use it to buy a house anymore. Not with my destroyed credit, not with $127,000 in debt hanging over me, even if the legal system eventually cleared it. So I would use it to fight back. "Do whatever you need to do," I told Marcus. "Send me the bill." He got to work. He filed criminal complaints with the police. He filed civil lawsuits against Sarah and my mother for fraud, identity theft, and emotional distress. He filed disputes with all 23 credit card companies, 4 lenders, and 2 car dealerships. He subpoenaed bank records and phone records and emails. And then we waited for the legal system to catch up to my rage. The police executed a search warrant at my mother's house 4 weeks after I hired Marcus. I was not there. I did not want to be there, but Marcus called me afterward and told me what they found. Everything I had photographed plus more. More credit cards, more fake identification documents, a second notebook detailing future plans for taking out a home equity line of credit in my name. They arrested Sarah first. She was home when the police arrived. She tried to run. She made it as far as the backyard before they caught her. She was charged with 23 counts of credit card fraud, 4 counts of loan fraud, 2 counts of vehicle fraud, and 1 count of identity theft. The bail was set at $75,000. They arrested my mother at the library where she worked, in front of her coworkers, in front of patrons. They handcuffed her and walked her out past the children's section where she had been reading stories to toddlers an hour earlier. She was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, aiding and abetting identity theft, and wire fraud. Her bail was set at $50,000. Neither of them could make bail. They sat in county jail for 3 weeks before their first court appearance. I did not visit them. I did not take their calls. I did not respond to the letters they sent. I had nothing to say to them. Sarah's first letter arrived 5 days after her arrest. It was written on yellow legal paper in her messy handwriting. "Rachel," it began, "please help me. This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Mom and I were desperate. We did not know what else to do. Please drop the charges. We can pay you back. I promise. Please. You are my sister. Family does not do this to family." I read it once. Then I put it in a folder Marcus was keeping for evidence. Mom's letter came a week later. It was longer, more detailed. She explained how she had lost her library job temporarily due to budget cuts 3 years ago. She explained how she had been too proud to ask me for help. She explained how she and Sarah had come up with a plan to borrow money in my name just until they got back on their feet. She explained how it had spiraled out of control. She explained how they had always planned to pay it back. "You have to understand," she wrote, "we are your family. We love you. We made a mistake, but we never meant to hurt you. You have always been the strong one, the responsible one. We knew you could handle it. We knew you would be okay. Please forgive us. Please help us. We need you." I read that letter 3 times, 4 times. I read it until I had every manipulative phrase memorized. We knew you could handle it. We knew you would be okay. They had destroyed my credit, stolen over $127,000, and ruined my dreams because they knew I could handle it. Because I was the responsible one. Because I had always taken care of things. I put that letter in the evidence folder too. Their court-appointed lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal. Marcus said they were offering to plead guilty to reduce charges if I agreed to drop the civil suit and not seek restitution. They would each serve 2 years of probation and pay a small fine. "No," I told Marcus, "I want them to face real consequences." The prosecutor agreed. She said this was one of the worst cases of family fraud she had seen. She said she wanted to make an example of them. She offered them a deal: plead guilty to all charges, serve 5 years in prison with possibility of parole after 3, and full restitution of $127,463.92. Sarah's lawyer advised her to take it. Mom's lawyer advised her to take it. They would both have criminal records, but 5 years was better than the 15 years they could get if they went to trial and lost. They both rejected the deal. They both insisted on their innocence. They both believed I would crack before trial. They both thought I would give in. They did not understand what they had broken inside me. The trial took 8 months to reach the docket. During those 8 months, Marcus and I worked on the credit disputes. We sent certified letters to every creditor with copies of the police report, the criminal charges, and my identity theft affidavits. We demanded they close the fraudulent accounts and remove them from my credit report. Some creditors cooperated immediately. They removed the accounts and apologized. Others fought back. They insisted I was responsible for the debt regardless of who opened the accounts. They threatened lawsuits. They turned the accounts over to collection agencies who called me at work, at home, at all hours. Marcus handled them. He sent cease and desist letters. He filed complaints with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He threatened countersuits for harassment. Slowly, account by account, my credit report began to change. The fraudulent cards disappeared, the fake loans vanished, the car payments stopped appearing, my credit score crept upward. 430, 512, 603, 701. It took 7 months, but eventually, my credit was clean. Better than clean. Better than it had been before, because now I had years of history with no late payments on my one legitimate card. My score hit 782, higher than it had ever been, but I still could not buy a house. Not yet. Because even though the fraudulent debt was gone, I now had legal bills. Marcus had cost $14,800 so far. Court filing fees added another $2,300. Credit monitoring services to make sure no new accounts appeared cost another $600 a year. My house fund was down to $43,000. Still not enough for the down payment I wanted. Still not enough for the house with blue shutters. But I was not giving up. I was just recalculating. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in October. The courthouse was old, with marble floors and wooden benches that creaked when you sat down. I arrived early with Marcus. We sat in the gallery and watched the room fill up. Sarah and my mother were brought in separately, both wearing orange jumpsuits, both handcuffed. Sarah looked thin. Mom looked old. Neither of them looked at me. The prosecutor was a woman named Janet Reeves. She was in her 40s with short gray hair and rimless glasses. She looked like someone's kind aunt. She was not kind in the courtroom. She laid out the case methodically. The timeline. The credit card applications, the fake driver's license, the notebook detailing every fraudulent account, the letter from my mother planning the cover-up, my testimony about discovering the debt, the bank records showing $200,000 flowing through an account I never opened. The jury listened. Some of them took notes. Some of them just stared at Sarah and Mom with expressions of disgust. Sarah's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of circumstance, a young woman struggling with mental health issues who made bad choices, a sister who loved me and never meant to hurt me. The prosecutor showed the jury the notebook, the meticulous record-keeping, the calculations, the planning. She asked the jury if that looked like someone out of control or someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Mom's lawyer tried to portray her as a desperate mother doing anything to help her child, a widow struggling financially, a woman who made a mistake out of love. The prosecutor showed the jury the letter, the instruction to hide evidence, the calculation that I would forgive them because I was family-oriented, the acknowledgement that they knew I was saving for a house and did it anyway. She asked the jury if that looked like love or exploitation. I testified on the third day of the trial. I walked to the witness stand. I raised my right hand. I swore to tell the truth. And I told it, all of it. I told them about working 2 jobs, about peanut butter sandwiches, about dreaming of blue shutters and white picket fences, about my mother praising my responsibility while stealing my identity, about Sarah's practiced forgery, about finding the letter. I told them about the moment Tom showed me my credit score, about the cold feeling in my stomach, about the betrayal. Sarah's lawyer cross-examined me. She asked if I loved my sister. I said I used to. She asked if I loved my mother. I said I used to. She asked if I wanted them to go to prison. I said yes. Why? She asked. Because they destroyed my life, I said, and they planned to get away with it, and they still think they did nothing wrong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the forewoman stood up and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts for Sarah, guilty on all counts for Mom. Sarah started crying, loud, gasping sobs that echoed through the courtroom. Mom just stared straight ahead, her face blank. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later. During those 3 weeks, I received more letters from Sarah, from Mom, from distant relatives who had heard about the trial and thought I was being cruel, from my mother's friends from the library who believed her version of events and thought I was heartless. All of them said the same thing. Family forgives, family helps, family does not send their own to prison. I did not answer any of them. Sentencing day arrived. The courtroom was more crowded this time. Media had picked up the story. Woman sends sister and mother to prison for identity theft, read one headline. Family fraud case results in maximum sentences, read another. The judge was a black woman in her 60s, named Judge Patricia Carmichael. She had a reputation for being tough but fair. She listened to Sarah's lawyer plead for leniency. She listened to Mom's lawyer argue for probation. She listened to Janet Reeves argue for the maximum sentence. Then, she listened to me. I stood up when she asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I walked to the podium. I looked at Sarah and Mom for the first time since the trial began. They both looked back at me with pleading eyes. I told the judge about my dreams. I told her about sacrifice. I told her about trust and how it felt to have it destroyed by the people who were supposed to love you most. I told her about the letter, about how they had planned for me to forgive them, because they knew I was family-oriented. I am family-oriented, I said. I believe in loyalty and support and love, but I also believe in consequences. I also believe that love does not mean accepting abuse. Love does not mean letting people destroy you and calling it a misunderstanding. I told the judge I wanted restitution for every penny they stole. I told her I wanted them to serve real time. I told her I wanted them to understand that there are some betrayals you cannot come back from. Judge Carmichael listened. Then she looked at Sarah and Mom. She asked them if they had anything to say. Sarah said she was sorry. She said she never meant for things to go this far. She said she loved me and hoped I could forgive her someday. Mom said she was sorry too. She said she'd been trying to help her daughter. She said family should stick together. She said she hoped I would understand someday when I was a mother. Judge Carmichael was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. She said she had presided over hundreds of fraud cases. She said family fraud was particularly heinous because it exploited the trust that should be sacred. She said the planning and calculation in this case showed a level of callousness that warranted serious consequences. She sentenced Sarah to 7 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 5 years. She sentenced my mother to 6 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 4 years. She ordered them to pay full restitution jointly and severally, meaning they were both responsible for the entire amount. She ordered that any assets they had be liquidated to pay toward the debt. Sarah screamed, Mom fainted, the courtroom erupted in noise. I sat quietly and felt nothing, not triumph, not satisfaction, just a kind of hollow peace. The bailiffs took them away. Sarah was still screaming. Mom had to be helped to her feet. They both looked back at me as they were led out. I did not look away. Marcus drove me home after the sentencing. He told me I had done the right thing. He told me that the restitution would be hard to collect because neither of them had assets, but we would do our best. He told me to call him if I needed anything. I went home to my apartment. I sat on my couch. I looked around at my carefully budgeted life. I thought about what came next. The restitution payments started 6 months later. They were small. $50 a month from Sarah's prison job, $25 a month from some savings account my mother had that the court seized. It would take 68 years at that rate to pay back what they stole. But Marcus filed for liens against any future income they might have. When they got out of prison, any job they worked would have wages garnished until the debt was paid. Any tax refunds would be seized. Any lottery winnings or inheritances would go to me first. They would be paying for this for the rest of their lives. The civil lawsuit took another year. We sued for damages beyond just the stolen money. Emotional distress, loss of opportunity, the cost of repairing my credit. Marcus was brilliant. He presented evidence of my damaged mental health. I'd started seeing a therapist after the trial, and my therapist testified about my PTSD symptoms, my trust issues, my anxiety. The jury awarded me $312,000 in damages on top of the $127,000 in restitution. More money than I would probably ever collect, but it felt good anyway. It felt like vindication. My mother's house was sold to pay part of the judgment, the house where I had grown up, where I had eaten thousands of Sunday dinners, where I had once felt safe. It sold for $240,000. After the mortgage payoff and fees, there was $87,000. That went to me. Combined with what was left in my house fund, I suddenly had $130,000, enough for a down payment, enough for a house. But the house with blue shutters was long sold. Someone else was making coffee in that sunroom. Someone else was planting tomatoes in that backyard. I looked for something new, something different, something that was not tied to my old dreams. I found a small ranch house on 3 acres of land 30 miles outside the city. It needed work. The kitchen was from the 1970s. The carpet was stained. The paint was peeling. But it had good bones. And it was mine. I bought it with cash, no mortgage, no debt, completely paid for. I moved in on a Saturday in June, exactly 3 years after the day Tom showed me my 430 credit score. I did not have much furniture, just my thrift store couch and my clearance rack dishes and my used coffee maker. But it was enough. I stood in my empty living room and looked around. The walls needed paint, the floors needed refinishing, the windows needed new curtains. I had years of work ahead of me. But it was mine. My name on the deed, my house, my space, my proof that working hard and doing the right things eventually pays off, even when the people who should love you try to destroy it all. I still work 2 jobs, not because I have to anymore, but because I like the routine, because I like having goals, because I like watching my savings account grow again. I still make peanut butter sandwiches sometimes, not out of necessity now, just because I have come to like them. They remind me of who I was and what I survived. I do not talk to Sarah. She writes me letters from prison occasionally. I do not open them. I just add them to the evidence box that Marcus keeps in case we need them for appeals. I do not talk to my mother. She will be released in 2 years. She has written to mutual friends, asking them to talk to me, to tell me she has changed, to convince me to visit. I've told those friends politely that I am not interested. Some people think I am cruel. They think I should forgive. They think family is family. They do not understand what it feels like to work for years toward a dream, only to discover that the people you trusted most stole it from you because they knew you could handle it. I do not need their understanding. I do not need their approval. I needed justice, and I got it. My credit score is now 812. I have no debt. I have a house. I have savings. I have a future that I built myself. Sometimes at night, I sit on my porch and look at the stars and think about the woman I was 3 years ago, the woman who trusted easily, the woman who believed family meant safety, the woman who ate peanut butter sandwiches and dreamed of blue shutters. That woman is gone. She died in Tom's office when she saw that 430 credit score. But someone new grew from her ashes, someone harder, someone smarter, someone who knows that love is not enough, that blood is not enough, that family is who you choose, not who shares your DNA. I am still lonely sometimes, I am still angry sometimes, I am still sad about what I lost, but I am free, I am safe, I am whole, and that is worth more than any amount they could ever repay. I am telling you this story because I want you to know that you can survive betrayal. You can survive the worst thing the people you love can do to you. You can press charges against your own mother and sister and still be a good person. You can choose yourself over family and not be selfish. You can build a life from ruins. If you are going through something similar, do not let anyone tell you that you have to forgive. Do not let anyone tell you that family deserves endless chances. Do not let anyone tell you that protecting yourself is wrong. You deserve safety. You deserve justice. You deserve a life that people do not steal from. And if getting that life means walking away from everyone who shares your blood, then walk away. You can survive it. I promise. My name is Rachel. I am 34 years old. I own a house. I have no debt. I have a credit score of 812. And I sent my sister and mother to prison for stealing my identity. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have made it this far, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. Would you have pressed charges against your own family, or would you have tried to work it out privately? I want to hear your thoughts. And if this story helped you in any way, consider leaving a super thanks to support the channel. Your support means everything and helps me continue sharing these stories. Remember, you are not alone. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.